There it is, Apple Watch OS 11, and in this video today we're going to be talking all about WatchOS 11 and all of the new running and fitness related tools and features in this new software. Apple Watch OS 11 is now available in public beta, which means you can go and download it for yourself if you want to try it out on your very own watch. Now keep in mind, this is still in beta, which means it's beta, there's bugs, there's things wrong with it, so if you rely heavily on your devices, I don't suggest going and downloading it. But for me, for the purpose of science, I've been testing out the beta version, including the developer beta, for like over the past month, ever since these new features were announced at Apple's WWDC event. So in this video today, I just want to run through all of these new features, my experience with them so far, how they work, and all of that. Now keep in mind, like I said, this is really only going to be relating to running and fitness related features. I will glaze over some of the other stuff as well, like the new watch faces, but I'm really only interested in the running and fitness stuff. And because of that, we'll be talking about training load, effort rating, the new Vitals app, offline maps, and route creation on your device. And that's something that Apple didn't really talk about, but I've dived deep on that one. Stick around for that. And of course, the new check-in functionality within the workout app on your Apple Watch. To kick this whole thing off, let's talk about the activity app or the fitness app on your phone. And as you can see here, I am running iOS 18, which does look pretty interesting because I'm using the dark theme. This is something that wasn't available on iOS 17, but that's besides the point. Let's dive right into the fitness app here. I got that open, and as you can see, it looks a little bit different. So at the top, we've got a tile for activity rings. That's no different than iOS 17. But as I scroll down, you can see we have a step count, step distance for the week. We've got my last session from Garmin Connect because again, Apple Health is pulling in all of my activities from all of the platforms, including Garmin. And then down the bottom here on the fitness app, we do have a new training load tile. And training load is very interesting. We're going to talk all about that in a minute. But first, let's see what else is new in the fitness app here. So if I click Edit Summary, you can see that all of my tiles start to wiggle as if they were icons on my home screen or something like that. And just like icons on my home screen, I can click on these and I can just drag them around however I want to fully customize what the fitness app experience looks like. And you can do more than that as well. You can also add new tiles. If I click on the top left, you've got a whole bunch of metrics that you can add here as well. So here we've got a sessions tile. There's trainer tips, there's training load. Here you can add your weekly distance, which is pretty cool. And you can format it in different ways. I can swipe over, see weekly time, weekly elevation gain, average pace, average power, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Another cool feature in the new fitness app is the ability to pause your ring. So what you can do now is scroll down to this little button here that says pause rings. And this will tell you you're going to pause your rings, they'll be grayed out, and you can tell it how long you want to pause your rings for. Quick interruption, if you're enjoying this video and finding it useful or helpful, please consider going down and giving me a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel down below so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. And while you're down there, check out today's sponsor, which is, it's me, Chase the Summit. Go check out my merch store. You can buy a sweet t-shirt like this or a really nice running hat or hat for going hiking. Do that too. Okay, back to the video. So that's the fitness app on iOS 18. Just a quick summary here. Now let's talk about training load because this one's very exciting. So if I click on that training load tile, you can see I've got a new training load graph from the past 28 days. Now the cool thing about training load is that the activities don't need to be recorded with an Apple Watch. You can actually record activities with a Garmin watch or a Suunto watch I have here or an Amazfit. Any watch or platform that can sync its data over to Apple Health is going to be considered or pulled in when calculating your training load. And we'll talk more about how training load works and pulls in data from other platforms in a minute, but first, a quick rundown on what training load is. So the idea behind training load is to give you an idea of how much load or training you have been putting in a given time period. And in this case, it's either going to be 28 days for a longer duration of time or a 7-day training load. And as you can see here at the top, it says well below, and that's indicating that my training is well below where I typically am. You can see there's a white line that kind of cuts through the center there, and that's sort of an average of your activity from the past 28 days. And then the squiggly line with multiple colors on it is your specific activity from the past 28 days. Now up at the top here where it says well below, it could say steady, above average, way above average, I think, well below, slightly below. So there's a bunch of different ratings it will give you depending where your training is. Now, the cool thing about the training load on the Apple platform here is that they keep it very basic. For example, if we look at the training load on like a Suunto or a Garmin watch, they give you a whole bunch of numbers. In fact, like the training load is calculated just in numerically. So it'll say like your training load is like 1200 or something like that. And most people don't actually know what that means at all. Another nice thing about the training load on Apple is that they spell it out for you. There's no guesswork here. It says your 7-day training load is well below your 28-day training load, and your last rated workout recorded was 2 days ago. That little blurb there just takes all the guesswork out of what training load is. Now above that training load graph, you'll also notice another thing, and it's that you can actually filter your training load depending on your activity. So if you're someone who competes in triathlons or Ironmans or something like that, you can actually independently look at your load for each activity. Another cool feature about training load on Apple is that there's also another filter here. So you've got running and workouts, but if I click all day, this is an entirely different training load. This actually combines your workout data from your runs and rides and stuff like that with other metrics. So if you've got a lot of time on feet that weren't necessarily workouts, for example, you have a very manual job, you're like a postal worker or something who's on their feet all day long, you're gonna see that your all-day training load is very high, even though that you have no activities recorded. And again, this is a feature that I don't think any of the competitors are doing. So it's just cool to see them sort of consider all of the other activity that's outside of recorded activities as still taking a toll on your body. Now that we've talked about training load and how it works and what it looks like, let's talk about how that data gets in there. So if I scroll down here, you're gonna see all of my recent workouts from the past week. And as you can see, they're all gray. That gray color indicates that they're not being pulled in or being considered when calculating my training load. So if I click on one run, for example, this top one, you can see I've got a 4-mile run here. I've got all of my activity data, but you're also gonna see a new metric here that says effort. And what this is basically just a generalized rating of how hard or how intense a given workout was. The cool thing about effort rating is that if you do use an Apple product like the Apple Watch Ultra 2 here to record your runs or rides or any activity, that effort rating will automatically be calculated based on your heart rate level and a bunch of other variables during your activity. For example, I've gone on a bunch of different runs, including a couple of super hard workouts, some speed work sessions with the Apple Watch Ultra 2, and it was able to come up with a pretty accurate effort rating based on my pace, my heart rate, and all of the variables that given day. However, even though it's automatically calculated on the Apple Watch Ultra 2 here, when I record an activity with my Garmin and sync it to Apple Health, it's not automatically calculated. Even though there's heart rate data and stuff, Apple just leaves that alone because it's not their activity. However, I can still manually bring this into training load by simply clicking on effort here. There's a little blurb. It says effort is a way to record the intensity of your workouts. Down at the bottom here, there's also a setting where you can actually toggle a post-workout reminder. And what this will do, I suggest turning it on, is it will remind you at the end of your activity to record your effort rating. And that's probably a good time to record it because you're in the moment. So I'm gonna go ahead and click done here. And then you've got a simple graph. So all the way on the left here, if I drag it to the left, you'll see it turns green and it says easy, indicating it was a super easy workout, very casual. Now, if I scroll up on this, you can see it turns blue, purple. It goes from moderate to hard. And then if we go all the way up to the edge here to 10, it says all out, indicating I just gave it my all. That was the hardest workout I've ever done. Now that we've taken a look at training load on the phone itself, let's take a closer look at how it looks on the watch. One really cool feature about training load on WatchOS 11 is that it's actually right up front and center because there's a new complication for your watch face. So on the right here, you can see up at the top, it says training, and down the bottom, it says well below. So that is training load on the right. And then on the left is the new Vitals app. So you can actually correlate whether or not your vitals are looking good with your training. And we'll talk more about the Vitals app in a second. One thing I wish Apple would do though is make this little gauge, this little meter for training clickable, because if you can see, if I tap on it, it doesn't actually bring me to training load. You still have to dive into the fitness app to get to training load. Then click this top right icon here, which will bring you into training load. And again, very similar interface than to what we just saw on my phone. You've got a little graph here for the past 7 days. And the cool thing is if I roll the digital crown here, you can see it goes through all the different days, showing me today was well below. Previous days were below, 49% below. If I go back to last Monday, you can see it says steady at 2% below my normal training day. And just like on my phone, I can filter my activities by clicking this top right icon. All workouts, running, or all day. Again, I can go to all day and see steady, well below, training load, and all the same stuff as usual as seen on my phone. But you also notice one more thing here, and it's at the bottom here. You can see there's a little icon that says no data. So what that is actually the Vitals app. So if I click on that, it brings me over to the Vitals app. And again, I wiped out all of my data from the Vitals app, so you're not gonna see much here, but I'll show you some pre-recorded stuff from last week. So the Vitals app, as the name implies, is just a central location for your watch to track all of your vitals from your previous night of sleep. I've got heart rate, I've got respiratory rate, I've got wrist temperature, I've got blood oxygen saturation, and you will need to enable this in the settings if you wanna use that because it does take a little bit of extra battery. And then I've got sleep duration on the end here. And if I scroll down one more time, it'll actually bring me to a little tile that shows my training load. And the reason they have training load in the Vitals app is because you want to be able to correlate like a bad night of sleep with a bad performance or being below your target training goals and correlate to, you know, having higher than usual wrist temperature or your heart rate is a little bit higher than usual. You can kind of piece things together and see the effect of your habits in your training. So jumping back to the top here, there's just a general page for your vitals that'll just give you an overview of what's going on. And the cool thing about this is at the top, you can see a little graph that will indicate if all of your metrics are good, they'll be stable right in the middle. And if anything's off, you'll see that your sleep duration goes down. That'll be affected on the graph as well. Now, if you do have a terrible night of sleep, and for example, your respiratory rate is through the roof and your resting heart rate is very high, or your sleep duration was very low, you'll get something called an outlier. An outlier is just what it sounds like. It's a bad metric the night before and something you should be aware of. So what the Vitals app will do is it will actually notify you if you have more than one outlier on the previous night of sleep. So if you have a short sleep duration along with a very high wrist temperature, you'll get a notification on both your watch and your phone that lets you know, hey, something's going on and you should be aware of that. And maybe you're coming down with a sickness or you had too much alcohol the night before, something like that. And all of this information is readily available within the Vitals app. All you've got to do here is click on the little information icon here, and you can see I've got a little blurb about what overnight vitals mean. And if I go down to a different vital like heart rate here, I can click on that. It shows what this typically means. So it'll show a lower heart rate typically indicates better heart health and cardiovascular fitness. And when your heart rate is elevated, it could mean something else. Another consideration with the Vitals app is that it will look different depending on the watch you have. For example, I have an Apple Watch Ultra 2 here that was purchased a long time ago. And because of that, I do have blood oxygen saturation available on this watch. If you have a newer Apple Watch Ultra 2, blood oxygen saturation is no longer available. It's been disabled. And because of that, you won't see the icon, you won't get that metric or any of that information. Moving into the next topic, and that is mapping and navigation on iOS 18 and Apple WatchOS 11. This is something that they covered very briefly in the launch event. It was all of like 50 seconds and it had me with a lot of questions, and I'm so glad I got to play with it because it is a huge upgrade over the older version of Apple Maps on your watch. So first up is route creation. So you can now design a route on your phone, your iPad, or your Mac in Apple Maps that then you can sync over to your Apple Watch and execute that route in real time. So if you're planning a hike and you want to get to the summit and then turn around and go back to the start, you can do that all now with your Apple products. Let me show you how this works. And first I'll show it off on the phone and then we'll take a look at the watch. So if I pull up the dashboard at the bottom here, you'll see all the typical stuff in Apple Maps. But now right below my library here, there's a little text block that says 2 places, 0 guides, and 4 routes. If If I click on that, you're gonna see I've got all of these different options. Now these are previously created routes that I've been playing with, but if I go up here, you can see I click on routes, and now you can see all of the routes that I've created over the past couple of weeks. Now, if I go ahead and click create, it shows me a little dialog box at the bottom here that says create a route, and it's indicating to click and tap to start your route. So I'm gonna go ahead and go over to my local center of town here. I'm gonna click there. That's marking the start of my route. Now I can scroll up. I can click on another point in space there. And as you can see, it's starting to draw a line in between where I click. And as I go, I'm also getting metrics at the bottom of the screen there. You can see it's 1.1 miles long. It should take me about 24 minutes if I walk. I'll be running, it will take me less than that. It'll be showing my elevation gain and descent. And down at the bottom here, you also get an elevation graph. If this was a more hilly area, you'd see that this would be all jagged, indicating mountains and hills ahead. I can click reverse, which will reverse my direction. I can click out and back, that'll create an out and back, or I can click close loop. And what that will do is it will create a loop from where I am back to the start. I'll click that. Now you can see it created a little out and back section here. Then it takes a different road and then kind of loops back around to the beginning of my activity. And that's just from clicking one button. And then I can give it a name, whatever I want this route to be named. And then down below here is the most critical part. You can check this box that says download route. And what that will do is it will download the map area of that route. So you'll have the underlying base map along with the route. Even if you're offline, you have no cell coverage and you still want to navigate that route, you can do that by downloading the map. But more importantly, you can see here, I can sync with Apple Watch. New maps you download to your iPhone will also download to your Apple Watch as well. And that was another big limitation of the old version of Apple Maps, and it was that you still needed your phone on you if you wanted to have offline maps on your watch. That is no longer the case with the new version of Apple Maps with iOS 18 and Apple Watch OS 11. You can now sync the map from your phone over to your watch and then take your watch into the wild and not need your phone, which is super cool. I have tested it out. It does work. On the road, when you're using Apple Maps for navigation, you'll get a little pop-up at the top of the screen, even when you're in the workout app looking at your pace and distance and stuff, telling you which way to turn when you approach an intersection. Just like you would before, if you were navigating to a known location on your watch, it works the same way, but now with a pre-designed route that you've created on your phone. It seems like the only limitation I've run into is when I took the Apple Watch Ultra 2 on a long trail run. I didn't have my phone on me for its internet connectivity. I had the Wi-Fi turned off on the watch, and when I used it in that situation and missed a turn, it wouldn't actually reroute me to get me to the right destination. Even though I created the route on my phone and synced it with my watch, it would just have this endless rerouting bubble that would keep spinning, and it wouldn't actually reroute me. And I think because I didn't have an internet connection or my phone on me. So I don't know if that's a limitation or just something because of the beta build and nature of this. It's not fully baked yet. It's not completely done. So just keep that in mind. It might change down the road. Another thing missing from the whole Apple Maps route creation thing is that you cannot import a standard GPX file from another platform like Strava or Garmin Connect or Find My Trail or All Trails or whatever. You can't export a GPX file or import it into Apple Maps. That just doesn't exist as of yet, which is kind of a downside for people out there who might have pre-created routes that they do want to follow on their Apple Watch. Moving into the next new feature, let's talk about check-in in the workout activity on the Apple Watch. This is actually pretty cool. So if I dive into my settings here and I go to workout and scroll down, you're gonna notice a new setting for check-in reminders. And it says Apple Watch can remind you to send a workout check-in when starting an outdoor workout. So if I jump back to this page here and I go to start my run, I'm gonna go ahead and click send. And now it's gonna ask me to start my workout. I'm gonna go ahead and click start. And now at the bottom of the screen, you're gonna see a little icon there that indicates that the check-in has been sent. There's a little yellow checkbox and a little icon of my wife's user profile. And if I go ahead and stop my workout and click end, again, another check-in is gonna be sent to her indicating that I've ended my workout. You can see right there at the bottom of the screen. Why would you wanna do this? Well, if you are someone who often goes for runs or bike rides alone, in my wife's case, she runs at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and at that time, she doesn't have anybody around her, it's dark, she's alone. There's a lot of variables there. hours. So having this feature just send a little notification to your loved ones indicating that you're out on a run or a ride can be pretty useful. And you can also decide to share as little or as much information as you want to during that activity. So that's really the bulk of all of the fitness and running related stuff in Apple WatchOS 11 and iOS 18. However, I do want to share one more fun little thing, and that is the new Photos watch face. So now on your phone, you can design a new Photos watch face, and it's using a sort of AI-driven algorithm to create these watch faces. And I tell you what, they're actually a lot of fun. So in my case, I've got a ton of pictures of all 4 of my children in my Apple Photos library. And what Apple did is they actually used an algorithm to identify people in your Photos library and then pull them in to make dynamic watch faces on the fly. And the cool thing is, within the Watch app on your phone, you can stylize these watch faces to be different colors and themes. They actually integrate the time of day and all of your complications into these watch faces really seamlessly, and like they'll hide text behind people in the photo, and it just looks really cool. It's a ton of fun. And if you get this new version of Apple WatchOS 11 and iOS 18, I highly suggest playing with it because I've had a lot of fun with it. And now's the point of the video where I want to hear from you. Do you have an Apple Watch Ultra 2 or an Apple Watch SE or whatever? Are you going to download the public beta on your watch to test it out ahead of time, or just let me do it for the sake of science? Let me know in the comments down below what features interest you, why you're excited about it, or if you're just not excited. That'd be kind of weird because it seems like all good stuff. And that's really it. That's kind of the end of this video. A quick rundown of all of the new features in Apple WatchOS 11, my experience with them so far, how they work, what I think about them, and it's all looking pretty good. I'm really excited to get all of the new training load features and the Vitals app and everything down the road when it's in full production and it's rolled out to everybody. But for now, if you do want to try it out, check out the public beta that is available right now. Just keep in mind that there are risks associated with beta, so don't download it unless you have a spare phone and you can play with it, because some funky stuff could happen, like battery drain and phone calls being missed and stuff like that. Just keep that in mind. And with that, we have made it to the end of this video. And if you're still watching, you probably liked this video. And if you did, I would really appreciate it if you went down and gave me the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. And while you're down there, check out all of the links in the description down below. Those links help support this channel, but they cost nothing extra to you. And if you're planning on picking up an Apple product or any of the other watches I talked about in this video, use those links. And while you're down there checking out the product links, also check out the links over to my podcast that I do on a regular basis, my website where you can buy a sweet t-shirt like this, and all of my social media accounts like Instagram and Threads and whatever else might be down there. Do that too. And that's it. We've gone to the end. This was long-winded. I'm sorry about that. I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye.